Arcane. Okay. First impressions, episode 1. I like this show a lot. I'll break it down in three ways. Visuals, one, world building, or the feel of the world, and then characters. So first off, visuals. There's three scenes that come to mind. The very beginning of this I was about to say film, because that's how it felt. This is like, I don't own a PS5 or 4. Um, this feels like a show that is like a live action PS5 game show or something like that. Like the visuals, especially there's a beginning scene, there's a fight scene, and there's a scene. Oh, sugar! It just escaped me. There's a scene. I forget. Never mind. But there's. I'll start off with the very beginning. There's a really like serious dramatic scene, and you see. I don't know how much I should give away. Smoke. I'll just say that you see smoke, and I don't know why, but obviously I'm a fan of Blade Runner. For people who don't know, the original film, and I got vibes of that throughout. Even before I saw like the different undercity and big city, I just got a vibe of that immediately. Whenever I'm transported to another world, that's what comes to mind. That and some other things like Fifth Element, the film, so on. But that's the feeling I got, which is a very good feeling. And the visuals alone and like stuff in the background reinforced that good feeling for me. Like it felt intense. And then ironically, it's more the character stuff that I was like, I'm not invested yet. But then I get to a scene, the fight scene that I was on about just now. Again, the people being punched, kicked out. Oh, I was like, oh, I felt. I'm watching an animated show. Arcane is an animated show. I don't know nothing about this property. Um, I saw a credit at the end that apparently is based on a game. I assumed it was based on a book. Or maybe it's both. Maybe it's like a Witcher situation. I don't know. Someone comment down below. Actually, don't. Actually, might spoil it. I don't. You don't comment down below. Just say mouth. Shh. um, but this, yeah, there's a fight scene, a brawl. I will say, this fight scene implies martial arts. I loved the look of it. It looks good. I don't know if there's any bigger surprises in terms of how they show that animated, that visual animation, and that the lengths they've gone to with this show, but they've done a good job. This is the type of stuff that is what like people should forget. Netflix, this is the kind of like, this is the future of shows. Like really break, if you're gonna do animation or certain type of genre film with its live action or otherwise, you push the boundaries. And this Spider-Verse actually, you know what, this makes Spider-Verse look, but Spider-Verse is still a good movie, don't get me wrong. It's just that it's been years now, so the shine has gone off compared to seeing this for the first time. And again, that, oh, I remember the last thing, seeing the cities. I think I mentioned that, but specifically the underground city. I don't know what it's called. Someone can fill me in again, please, because I know nothing. I think that's when I was like, oh shoot, this might be some Blade Runner stuff. You know how I feel about Blade Runner. I love the shit. I love it so much. Oh fuck. um, I remember there's a scene where they're walking through some place, and you see some characters in a bar, and one of the characters, again, all the stuff in the background. One of the characters has like golden eyes, looking like a demonic cheetah or some shit like that. Magnifique. Mm. I don't know if I'm in store for like any fantasy elements, but if there is fantasy elements to this world, if they mend that in right with this like I think it's called steampunk or I guess cyberpunk. No, this is more steampunk. This gives me the vibe of steampunk. If they mixed some fantasy elements of this world with that steampunk type of stuff, oh wow, this is gonna be like this is the vibe I got from watching videos on YouTube about Game of Thrones. Hot take: I'm not the biggest fan of Game of Thrones. The sub count is gonna go low after that. But in all honesty, videos about the world of Game of Thrones excite me more because that's what interests me, and everything in the background, like I said, mentioned the start of the movie, certain like effects with smoke, and just the visuals there, fight scene, certain characters, their facial features, certain things at the end of this very end of this episode. It was just symmetry for me, and that was the biggest takeaway from watching this show. If I'm honest, or the first episode, I don't know what else I have in store. But the second thing I mentioned after the visuals was the feel of the world, which I've kind of already talked about. So I'll just be brief. Like I said, everything in the background, the main characters, ironically, were the downside of this episode. But the feel of the world, especially that undersea, felt it felt lived. It felt, you know what it felt like to me. It felt a tiny bit. I don't know why. It gave me Diagon Alley mixed with Blade Runner, mixed with something on my mind. Oh, it just slipped. Oh yeah, Fifth Element. I mentioned it. Yeah, it felt like it wasn't trying to be just another sci-fi thing. Like it's its own thing that has a lot of original thought put into it, but it's still inspired by obviously different things. There's nothing is completely original when you do these type of worlds, and I love the lived-in feeling. The rich city, it looks cool. The very beginning and the very end, the certain shots. I'm excited. There are characters who were barely in this episode. Like I said, certain people with like certain facial features that excite me more than any of the main characters I saw in the show. That was the only flaw of the show, and it'll take me to my third big thing about this episode. The characters. The characters are like meh to me. The only people that I liked, like I said, were people who were in the background and barely had any speaking roles. I mentioned earlier, it was a character in a bar. She had like certain colored eyes that made her look like I mentioned a demonic cheater, because that's the thing that came to mind. Like no scripts. That I was literally just thinking of that. That what the heck am I looking at? I like that. Um, and then someone else at the end of this episode who had, I don't want to say similar facial features, but also looked. I don't even know the words to put it. He didn't look entirely natural. Didn't look human. But I mean, if you've never seen this, I'm probably blown it out of proportion. He looks human. He just had certain distinct features that made it stick out to me as someone who's a fan of fantasy, like the worlds of stuff like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, right? So that stuff sticks out to me. Big like with those characters, but they are barely in this episode. And one of them is just a straight up backup character to someone else in the scene. That bar scene I'm talking about. The main characters in the episode, meh. I'm sure because I've heard some good things. I heard just the main character Vi is played by Haley Steinfeld, who I'm watching currently in Hawkeye, and I like her there. She's a good actress. She seems like a likable person in the little I've seen her in from Hawkeye. She's fine in this show. Again, in this first episode, I bet you if I've heard certain things about the reputation of certain characters in the show, I bet you my mind will be different. But I have no qualms about speaking my mind. If I don't like a character, I don't care if people are doing backflips over them. It's just meh to me in this episode. The same with her gang. Gave me like that you wanna talk about the difference between influence and what felt like a little rip off it ish. That was like some budget Goonies type ish. Like, nah, I'm good. Um, yeah, yeah. That was the only drawback a little bit. I wasn't annoyed by them. It's just that everything else that was meant to be background information was so much more interesting than them. And those are my thoughts on the first episode of Arcane. Guys, tell me what you think down below. If you've seen this already, what did you think of the first episode when you first saw it? Did you like it? Did you love it? Were you indifferent to it? Were you somewhere in between? If you haven't seen the show, tell me, are you considering watching it? Whether or not you watch this video or not. Yeah, tell me your thoughts down below. Press that thumbs up button. Share it with all your friends. And lastly, press that sub button. It's right there. Don't be shy. Click. Other than that, guys, signing off. Salute.